I'm going to show you how to take all the information from your research that's in your design brief framework and turn it into an infographic in this video. The first thing you're going to need is your completed pay-for-service design brief framework. You'll notice that I have my name and the type of service. This was actually the gym, and this was my information for the A to Z gym that I did research on. There's their sign-up fee, $25. And I have month numbers here. The amount per month was always $10. And then my total amount, you'll see, goes up with every month because I'm adding that to the total amount I've spent on that service. I've got my 24th month filled in, and I also have the nth month or any month filled in by making an expression to describe what happens. And what happens is you take the month number and you multiply it by 10, and then you add that initial $25 to get the total amount for that month. So my expression is 25 plus 10n, or I could write that 10n plus 25, or I could write it 10 times n plus 25. So once you have that information for both of the companies that you're researching, one on one side and the other on the back side, then you're ready to create your infographic. All of the information for the infographic can be found on BB9. You'll remember that this is the document that's loaded on BB9, the design brief. And when you scroll down to number 3, it says, create an infographic that includes the following pieces of information. We're using Infogram as our creator. Initially, we had PictoChart in there, but on BB9, it's been updated to include Infogram as the creator that we're using, the online creator. And so for both companies, you have to put the name and the logo of the companies, of both of them. A name and description of the package that was researched, a graph of the price over 6 months. Notice you're not putting all 2 years in there. We found that when we were loading the information into Infogram, that got to be too cumbersome and it was difficult to read the graph. So 6 months is plenty for you to draw your conclusion. Write 2 pros and 2 cons for each company. A pro is something that's positive about the package or the company itself, and 2 cons are 2 things that are negative about each company. And then a persuasive statement that tells the reader which company to select. Now this statement might be 2 or 3 sentences, and you really should point out the data that you have in your graph because that's pretty powerful data to support your argument. So once you have thought through those things and you have your data, you're going to click on the link to go to Infogram. This is Infogram. Notice where they have the dot in the address for that. But Infogram is it's an infographic creator, and it's in a beta version. Beta version means that it's kind of in a test version. And so it may not be perfect. They're still working kinks out, but while they're figuring out and fixing the little bugs in the program, we get to use it for free. So you have to sign up for an account, and you only need between you and your partner, only one of you needs to sign up, and you're only going to create one infographic per partnership, but you're going to be able to post it on both of your STEMfolio sites. So to register, you're going to put your username. That's going to be your school username with the 000 or the 001. Please put your full email in for your email address. Make sure it's your student Gmail address from the district. And then we found earlier that using your username again for your password is the best way to get in there. Most of our passwords for our our lunch codes aren't actually long enough to be a secure password. So I have a username and I've already registered. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. I have an infographic that I've already started. It's in my library, but I'm going to show you how to set up a new infographic by going to the new infographic section. When you click on it, they give you these templates that you can choose from. All of them you'll see have a different kind of graph, and you can change the type of graph that they're working on, and you can change the text. You can change the order of things on the page. I'm going to use this graph partially because it has a line graph, and that's exactly what I need. Now, this is a dummy text, just means that it's not real. This is not the real text. They are encouraging you to double click and type in your information. So I might give it a title like, which gym is best? Short and sweet, to the point. And then when I click enter, it turns that into my text. Notice also that the text can be moved. You just click and drag and it changes the order. Maybe I want this on the bottom of there, and then my graph will be more on the top. Over on the right, there are a number of options. This is to add a chart. You already have a chart in here, but I can click on the X to get rid of it. It is really important, though, for this infographic that we are using a line graph. We're going to graph two lines. We've actually created a linear equation with our expressions, and so we need to show that in a line. But this is where you could add a chart, and you can add all different types of charts. You can see if you were doing this for another project, there might be a different type of chart that's more appropriate. But we're going to be using a line chart, and they do have a couple options for that. But for the most part, it's already set for us. We're good to go. This is if we wanted to add a map that doesn't really fit with what we're doing here today, but you may need to add text, and so you can add text boxes. So maybe when you're adding your pros and cons for the different companies, you can add pictures. So when you're grabbing the image of the logo from a website of one of your companies, you can always save that on your downloads and then insert it as a picture. So I'm going to go and I'm going to actually edit this chart because that's where the majority of the work is going to be for you today. And so I'm going to double click to edit the chart, and I get a spreadsheet. All of these charts are made from data that is in a spreadsheet. And this is just the generic data that was in this template. So we can click clear all data to get rid of it. Now it's empty. Now we have nothing in there. And so we need to load our information in there in a way that it's going to show on our infographic. So I start by putting the months across the top. So we have month 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now just so you know, you can use the arrow keys to move around in here. If you're in a cell and you're done with it, you can click enter and it'll go down to the next cell. And if you're in a cell and you want to move over to the right, you hit the tab key and it'll take you over to the next one. So here's where in this cell 2A and 3A, I need to put the name of the companies that I'm working with. And so maybe one of my companies was A to Z Gym, and the other one was the YMCA. Now this is where my data goes, and all we're graphing for this is we are graphing the total amount. So if I go back to my design brief framework, I can see that month number 1 was 35, month number 2 was 45, month number 3 was 55, and so on. So I'm going to put that data in, 35. Notice I'm not putting dollar amounts in. When you put dollar amounts, it changes the formatting. And so we're just going to leave it as just a regular whole number, 75 and 80. Now, I don't have my YMCA data right here available, but I'm going to go ahead and click Done so you can see how this graphs what we're doing here. Now, the one issue I have, actually I have two issues with this program, is how they don't completely perfectly represent the math that we're doing. One thing is when we're doing the graph, technically we should have a X and a Y for values. So it should technically go down. We should have month 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coming down, and then the values for that going down. But we won't nitpick it too much. The other thing is that our graph should actually start over on this axis, and this is the y-axis. And so we should be able to see that if this line continued, it actually crossed right where our registration or sign-up fee was $25 if we continued this line. But we can definitely see how the price goes up, or our total amount spent goes up with the month, and we can see the months along the bottom and the dollar amounts going along the side. So for our purposes, it does help us see which company is going to be the best buy. So I'm actually going to go back to my library here, because you can see I have a couple of them started already, and I'm going to pull up one of mine that shows the two lines. And so you can see that this one has both lines graphed. You can see that I've started to put a logo in. I've started to give a little bit of my statement for which one I should pick. But it's not done. It's not completely done, and that's the work that you're going to do. Make sure you're using your own data. Make sure you're working collaboratively with your partner. And feel free to visit this video and to rewatch how to set up your infographic at any point when you get stuck. I'm going to go back to that design brief to remind you that you need to have the name and logo of both of the companies, name and description of the package that you researched, the graph of the price over 6 months, 2 pros and 2 cons for each company, and then a persuasive statement at the end that tells the reader which company to select.